Hey everybody, this is Paige from Mosaic Moments. Today I have a step-by-step tutorial for beginners. Although if you're not a beginner, this is a great video if you just want to learn some extra tips from me. But if you are a beginner, so maybe you were just introduced to this scrapbook system, maybe you're still on the fence about it, or you just received your basic die set. This is a great video for you because I take you step by step to creating a Mosaic Moments layout. Alright, so the first step is planning, and I find with most people this takes up the most time of making any scrapbook page really. But for Mosaic Moments, you will definitely need photographs. This is my pile of 4x6 photographs here, so I'll be using those on my 2-page spread. You may also want some cardstock or patterned paper if you like that. Here I decided to use 2 colors cardstock, and you will also need 2 sheets of grid paper, which is the foundation of all of our layouts. Alright, so I chose the color of grid paper I have is called Persimmon. It's from the Fresh and Fruity collection, or you can buy it on individually. And I chose it because it reminded me of the colors. These photos were taken at a Spanish colonial historic site out in California called the San Juan Capistrano, and I thought the grid paper with all the variation of colors looked like the colors on the buildings in the pictures. And I also have this cinnamon cardstock because there is some of this kind of reddish brown on the roof of the buildings, and I thought it was very pretty. I also grabbed another neutral brown. There's a lot of browns in the photos, so yeah, take the time to pick the colors. I usually so these colors are really based on the theme from my photographs. I used the inspiration from the colors in the photos for the paper I chose. To create these pages, you will also need certain tools such as repositionable glue. This one's the Herma Dotto Dispenser, but there are other brands out there as well. Just make sure they say repositionable and not permanent. You will also need a die machine. This one is the Sizzix BigKick, which is one of my favorites, but there are lots of other ones out there, and I recommend reading reviews before choosing one. This is a pair of craft tweezers, and I also have washi tape. These are just handy tools for when you are using the dies, and I'll show how to use them later. To create these pages, you will also need the basic die set. This is the colored one from China. We also have a silver set that's made right here in the USA. And just now I pulled out a couple of patterns. Another tool beginners need to know is the pattern gallery. We have hundreds of layout ideas that are free for you to use. All of them can be printed for your own use, and you can get these on our site, mosaicmoments.com/patterns. One way you can sort through the patterns is by category. Right now the column category is highlighted since I am using one of these today. For beginners, a good rule to remember is that column patterns match well with pinwheel patterns. So they make a great 2-page spread together. Pinwheel patterns are a radial design, and they work well as a second page for many of the patterns on our gallery. And they also allow you to fit both horizontal and vertical photos. So on the left I have a column pattern. You can see there's 3 separate columns. And on the right I have a pinwheel pattern, which is more of a radial look. There's usually a square in the center and the rest of the elements circle around it. So take a look at these at the pattern gallery. On the left is pattern number 444 and the right pattern number 356. And because the patterns are color-coded, I know which die sets I need. So I know I had a grid die in there by accident. But as you can see, I have the blue, pink, and purple sets because I know that there's blue, pink, and purple in the pattern. So that's why the colored basic die set is very handy. I always make sure there's a similar element with both of the patterns, and as you can see, they both have these small squares, which I will actually be filling them in with this Fiesta Flower Die. It goes with the theme of my photos. And to cut these squares faster, I'm actually going to be showing you the grid cut die. You don't need to have it, but it's a fun bonus. And to fill in these small spaces, I'm going to be using the 1x2 strip die. So that's also a fun bonus you get to see today. You absolutely do not need these dies. They're just kind of fun bonuses. Anyway, so now that I have everything planned, I have all my photos, let's get started creating the page. When I begin a Mosaic Moments layout, I like to start with the bigger dies and work my way down to the smaller ones. So this is the 4x6 die from set B. It's one of the bigger dies in the bundle. This is the biggest die in the B set, or the purple set, so it's pretty easy to figure out which one it is. And then of course I'm going to lay my die and paper in the machine. By the way, each die machine is different, so definitely take a look at the manufacturer's instructions to know how to layer your die and paper in the machine. Alright, now I'm going to use my next die. This is the 3x4 die from set C, and I know if it's from set C because it is the pink set. And I'm actually going to be cutting with this one 4 times, and I'm using 2 different colors. I like to use, not for every page, but a lot of times I like to use 2 different cardstock colors on my page to add some more interest and variety. Alright, I'm going to bring out my 2 patterns here. As you can see, they both have these 2 large squares. So I need the 4x4 die from set A. And I'm going to be cutting with this one twice, so they will be in both of my layouts. Now I need to cut these large pieces on the second layout. This is the 3x5 die in set B. So it's easy to just pop it in the machine, roll it through, and it's already cut. It's so quick. The next step is to put your layout together. So I have my glue, my pattern, so I can start creating my layout. This is the block that I made first earlier. Now when you're first using grid paper, just take your time. I always line the corner, the top left corner of my block right into the left corner of where I want it to be placed, and then line it up with the top and left side lines. So just put it in the corner and then line up on the top and side. And in the end, you should not be able to see those grid lines once they're covered. Just a design thing here, I like to use 2 different colors for the top and bottom, unless you're going to make all the mats the same color. And I also like doing this triangle look. Notice how it forms a triangle with the 2 different colors, the 3 cinnamon and the 3 tan color. Now you don't need a ton of glue. Oh, just real quick here, sometimes you may get a rough edge on your cardstock or photos, and I like to use that Lil Chizler I just used now, that pink thing. That's also available on our site, so that thing's pretty handy about smoothing out the rough edges. So when I put the glue down, I just like to glue each corner and put some glue right in the center. That's really all you need. You don't need a ton of glue. And the repositionable tape, by the way, does become permanent over time. So you don't need to apply any more glue. All right, so with my pattern, I know I need to put the square shape right in the center. Again, just take your time. Put that left corner right into the corner of the grid line and then line it up on the top and side. And again, when you're finished, the whole grid line should be covered. With the pattern as my reference, now I know where to place my 3x5 blocks on the grid. All right, so when I say 3x5, by the way, I do not mean 3x5 inches. I mean 3x5 squares on the grid paper. The measurements are actually 3 1/4 by 5 1/2. If you want to learn more about the grid paper or understand the measurements better, you can click the link on the top right and watch that video. So you may have noticed that the video is actually going slower than previously because I want you to see the process of lining up each block on the grid. And I've had a lot of practice at this point, so I probably go a little bit faster than a beginner. Many people actually start out with getting one of our page kits to help practice lining up their blocks on the grid paper. So I recommend maybe looking into page kits if you want to have a little bit of practice with the Mosaic Moments system. All right, now I'm going to use my grid cut die, and the reason why I'm using it is because I can get 6 squares all at once. Now, if you don't have this die, it's okay. You can use the 2x2 die from set A, this one here. You would just have to cut it 6 times, but the grid cut die is handy because I can cut all 6 of them all at the same time. So as you can see, I just rolled it through, and they are going to be stuck together. It is this way intentionally, so you just got to pull them apart. Now I'm going to cut with the Fiesta Flower Die, and I'm actually going to be cutting this die 6 times, but I'll just show you this one time. With the decorative dies, you will probably need the tweezers to poke it out. There's these little holes in the back, and usually there's one right in the corner, and that'll actually make it so you can just peel that cut out of the metal die. So yeah, so the tweezers are really handy when you get to those more decorative dies. All right, so I have my 6 squares, and before I glue them down, I want to show you that I'm changing up the pattern on the right side just slightly. You can see the squares are like on the outside of the grid, but I want them to match the left pattern. So to do that, I'm just going to switch that pink and blue part. See, on the other side, the pink's on the outside, but the right side, the pink is on the inside part, but I'm just swapping it so it'll match with the side on the left. So you can adjust the patterns if you need to, which is what's great about them. As beginner, I would probably just stick to what you see on the pattern, but you can make little changes like that. All right, again, just take your time when you're putting the glue on the grid paper. When you're new, it's something you need to just take your time and make sure you're covering all the grid lines. All right, next I have these Fiesta Flower die cuts, and they are more intricate. Instead of using the Herma Dotto dispenser, I'm using this glue from Tombow. Now, what's neat about this glue is that it is also repositionable if you let the glue dry first. And what's nice about it is it does have a finer tip. The Dotto, I think some people have a hard time using it on the intricate dies. So if that bothers you, you can always opt for a glue option like this one where there's a fine tip, so you can get around those smaller and thinner areas without worrying about bending your die or something. Or anyway, I'm gluing it right on the paper, but you may also want a spare piece of cardstock to glue on top of, especially if you're new. You know, you may not be quite as confident with your skills, but so I'm just going to let this dry for a few minutes, and I'll be back after they're done drying. It takes about 3 minutes, and then they're ready to be repositionable. So I'll be back. All right, now the glue is dry, and I can start adding these Fiesta flowers onto my page, which is pretty straightforward. You cut the dies, add the glue, and then I'm able to just place them right on top of the cardstock that's already been cut. As you can see, it's pretty easy. So now I'm going to start adding my photographs, which is awesome. It's one of the most exciting parts of making the page, right? So as you can see with this one, I didn't have to trim it or crop it or anything. The 4x6 photo fits right in the space. And just really quick, I'm just showing you how the layering dies will look. They're slightly smaller than the dies that were cut to the size of the grid paper. Just now, I placed a layering die from set A on top of this photo, and I'm using washi tape because this die goes right on the edge and it's pretty easy for it to shift, and then my photo would be crooked. So definitely use washi tape on these dies that are close to the edge of your photograph. All right, now I'm going to cut these photos with a layering die from set B. So this die is slightly smaller than the 3x5 die that's in that set. And of course, you just place the die on top of your photo and roll it through the machine. It's pretty simple. And now I'm doing this horizontal photograph. Just take your time to place the die on where you want over in the photo. All right, and that's finished. And now I'm using this die this is a layering die for the 3x4 size die in set C. So as you can see, the layering dies are very easy to use. Okay, so with this photograph, I am going to be using this 1x2 strip die. If you don't have the strip die, you can use this 1x2 die from set C. You just have to cut it with it 6 times for this page, but with the strip die, I'm using it because I can get all of these cuts all at once. Again, you don't have to use this, but I find it to be a faster option. This die is really meant for making things like panoramas, but it is handy if you just need to make multiple of these size die cuts all at once. Alright, so that was pretty easy, and yes, they are stuck together on purpose, so you don't lose them so easily. So now is the fun and probably the easiest part of making the whole page is being able to place your photos on your grid paper. And since I already cut those mats, I can just place my photographs right on top. And I still need to glue them down, obviously. I haven't done that yet, but you can kind of just take your photos and go through and make sure you see want to see where I want to place them. So, you can move them around as needed. And of course, you can just add your glue. Now, you kind of have to eyeball where to place your photo on the mat. So just take your time. You kind of just want to make sure the photograph is right in the center and the mat around it looks even around each edge. So I think the key here really is to take your time. And if you need, once you're done with the page, sometimes I take a step back and look and see if anything looks crooked or if anything needs to be adjusted. So that is what's nice about having the repositional glue, is that since it's not permanent, it's not going to tear up your paper if you need to move anything. All right, I'm almost finished. I got this last piece. Well, and then I need to put on the small ones. All right, this is the photo I cut with the strip die, and I just easily put the glue, just like one stripe on each strip pretty much of glue. And then you can separate them and place them in the places they fit in. So if you're going to do this method, I just recommend using a photograph where, in this case, it was just kind of some greenery, and so it doesn't look bad if I rotate it. All right, so now my page is done. I am really happy with the result. All right, I hope this video was really helpful, especially if you're a beginner. I hope you learned a lot of tips and that you feel more confident using the Mosaic Moments system. It really is simple. Once you have all your materials and you're prepared to do it, it actually is really fun to create a full 2-page spread. Anyway, give this video a like if you enjoyed seeing this process done, and let me know below in the comments if you have any questions. And don't forget to subscribe because more videos are coming for beginners. And more tips are coming too. So don't forget to subscribe. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.